Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Like a thief in the night, the little-known Epic Sports and Entertainment, it snatched away promotional control of the prospective IBF heavyweight final eliminator between Kubrat Pulev and Dillian Whyte. But who and what is Epic Sports? I mean, that's something I've been asking myself because I didn't know. And also, what happens next? So let's work through some of this and the reaction from Pulev himself, who's actually claiming a victory here. Buckle in. Let's go. So I got a heads up early morning my time from a passionate Kubrat Pulev fan, Gick, that Pulev had won the purse bid. So I went to Pulev's Facebook page, I saw that he'd put a statement on there, and it was about the purse bid result. So he was declaring success. Obviously, this is in Bulgarian. But what I'll do is I'll come back to the English translation a bit later in the video because more context is going to put Pulev's words into better context. Without the extra context here, you might be kind of asking yourself quite a few questions. So I then tweeted Pulev's statement after I saw it, and I actually got a like from Pulev himself. So I, after that, went about my day, and I didn't really think too much of it for another hour or so. But it quickly became clear there was nothing normal about this purse bid. News emerged that it wasn't Pulev's promoter Team Sauerland that had won. It wasn't Dillian Whyte's promoter Eddie Hearn of Matchroom that had won. But in fact, it was this outfit called Epic Sports and Entertainment. So the winning purse, it was $1.5 million. That's what was bid. So 1.5 million and change. So US dollars, that is. It was almost double the bids of Hearn and Sauerland. So if this fight does go through, contracts are signed, etc., all that sort of thing, Pulev, he'll take home 75% of the purse as ordered by the IBF. So that's 1.125 million US dollars for him and 375k for Whyte. Okay, so per ESPN's initial coverage, Epic Sports and Entertainment, it's headed by former long-time Don King attorney John Wirt, and it submitted 10% of its bid total at the purse bid itself, and it took place at the IBF offices in Springfield, New Jersey. So Epic Sports, it's got 5 business days to submit a check to the IBF for another 10%. So the promotional company, ESPN continues, must return the signed contracts for the bout to the IBF within 15 days, no later than June 8. And the fight must take place within 90 days, so that's before August 24th. Now, Epic Sports, I had never heard of them before, I'll be honest about that, didn't know who they were. So I did a custom Google search to exclude the immediate news coverage, and really nothing much came up. So I was searching a bit more through Google, through Bing, and I eventually came across this diagram. So this relates to the company structure of Epic Sports and Entertainment. So the other active player you can see in the left-hand corner there for Epic Sports is Ivalo Gotsev. That's Ivalo Gotsev. And if we actually go to Gotsev's LinkedIn profile, it says he's been running the company since, or involved in the company, well, with the company since 1992. And who is he exactly? Well, TalkSport's Michael Benson, he tweeted that Gotsev is a former advisor to Triple G and manager to Samuel Peter, and that he's promoted fights before. So see some of these examples on screen. We've got a Sam Peter fight in 2014 and a recent Ricardo Mayorga fight. In a follow-up tweet, he also alludes to Pulev's statement that I referenced earlier, and also the fact that Ivalo Gotsev is Bulgarian. He is Bulgarian. So the plot starts to thicken a little bit there, doesn't it? So going to Pulev's statement now. So it says in it, Kubrat Pulev wins in the auction for match against Dillian Whyte. Happy 24th May to all Bulgarians. This bright day in the history of our homeland is the nativity of Bulgarian education, and always on the 24th May we celebrate the power of knowledge, of Bulgarian writing and culture. Just today, without having to get in the ring, The world's pride in a heavy category of professional boxing won the absolute right to organise the match against Dillian Whyte. The details will be expected to be specified in short periods, but it is known that this fight should be held within 90 days. So the translations between Bulgarian to English, it's never perfect, but you get the gist of it. So he's pretty happy about this, you judging by that statement. And that's one of the things that I want to cover for the remainder of the video is the celebratory message. But I also want to get to the seemingly low purse bid from both Sauerland and Matchroom, and get your take on that as well. And also, will this fight actually happen? Because there's no certainty it will. And perhaps that's exactly what Kubrat Pulev wants. So in terms of the statement, so the way that Pulev is speaking, you'd think he'd won the lottery. He is honestly going gangbusters there. He's loving it. So it does beg the question, what involvement or knowledge did he have of the purse bid by Epic Sports? Judging by a statement, it would appear that perhaps some, because he's very happy that his fellow Bulgarian, Ivalo Gotsev, is running the promotional side of this eliminator. It could actually put Whyte into a tricky spot regarding a decision. Should he stay for this or should he go? And it shapes as a bit of a power move, potentially, putting Whyte in a certain spot. But I'll cover a little bit more on that later. I know that there is some chatter that the fight could potentially be held in New York. But when I was thinking about this, it's like, well, wouldn't it make sense to stage it in somewhere like Bulgaria or Germany? Because that's where Pulev has been predominantly fighting. He's got a high profile in both countries. I'm sure, more of these details are going to flush out soon. But the winning bid, so a very nice chunk of change, just over $1 million to Pulev and $375K to Whyte, 1.5 million total. And then you look at the Matchroom and Sauerland bids. In the context of the 1.5 mil, they actually seem a bit on the low side, don't they? Or that's the way I sort of look at it, but I guess that's natural. It's almost half the amount of the winning bid. But when you look at the Matchroom bid in particular, if it had have just been a two-horse race, Dillian Whyte's end would have only been about $200,000, and that equates to about £150,000. So if the Matchroom bid had have been successful, when you consider Whyte's inside the top 10, it feels low for a purse amount. Had Matchroom's bid been that winning bid, and given the demands and associated costs of being a top-flight boxer, training camps, chuck in the general cost of living, other expenses, it's not like he would have been, really going anywhere in terms of, his finances. He would have been eating up a lot of that just to get through this fight. He wouldn't exactly been, flush with cash after that. But even at $375K from the Epic Sports bid, if I was Whyte, I'd probably be feeling a little short change for a fight of this significance. Sure, the IBF is, it's making him eat the short end of the stick here. But if I was in his position, I'd be thinking, well, this is the biggest fight of my career. I'm in the prime of my career. It's top-level heavyweight boxing. I should be making more. You may have some different views on this one, so let me know. Also, were you surprised by the Matchroom and Sauerland purse bids? I know there will probably be some fans who will point to it as an example of Eddie Hearn not investing or truly believing in Dillian Whyte as a commodity in the heavyweight division, or not believing in him as much as he could. Because if he had put a bit more money on the table, if it was, over $1 million, you could kind of go, well, it was a pretty decent bid. But 800,000, it's sort of at that level where you go, well, Eddie Hearn knew that Whyte would only be getting 25%, so, just over 800K, Whyte's end at 200K, and that's US dollars, not pounds. So put it into pounds, it would be roughly just over 150,000 pounds. So what do you make of that? Do you put any stock into, there is sort of these swirling sort of, comments that sort of, bubble up around Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, the relationship. And does Eddie Hearn really believe in Dillian Whyte? Do you put any stock in that? I guess with this whole situation though, with Epic Sports swooping in, I'm kind of left with more questions than answers. The company is clearly not a big-time operator, and from the information available, it's never put on a fight of this magnitude. Clearly it hasn't. I mean, that's not to say that it can't, but we don't really have much history to gauge it on. I mean, it's clearly serious though. It's already put 10% down, another 10% on the way, and contracts have to be signed by June the 8th. And I guess that's the next question. Will Dillian Whyte sign the contract for this fight, knowing that it may end up in somewhere like a Bulgaria or a Germany potentially, and that he's getting a relatively small slice of the pie? And remember, Whyte, he's got another option here. He has a WBC eliminator that he can pursue against Luis Ortiz. So the grass may start to look a little bit greener, especially when you consider that purse split will be 50-50 as ordered by the WBC. So Dillian Whyte could look at that and go, well, I think I can beat Luis Ortiz. I'm going to get more money. That could be the way to go. But I guess the sort of drawback there is a title shot isn't guaranteed, because that's for the second mandatory. It's ridiculous that, you know, a second mandatory position is now being created by the WBC, but that's by the by, not for this video. But Whyte, he actually said earlier in May, and here's something just to mull over, that Pulev had no heart, and that Pulev wanted him to go after Ortiz, because then he'd be able to go down to the next person who'd be eligible for the fight, which he said on record was Alexander Dimitrenko. See, he asserted that Dimitrenko was the next guy. So I'm looking at the rankings going, okay, Dimitrenko, he's at 8. We've got the likes of Joseph Parker and Carlos Takam ahead of him. But perhaps, presumably based on Whyte's statement, that he potentially knows that maybe Parker and Takam are ineligible potentially, that they can't contest the eliminator. And why would that be? Well, Takam, he's just fought for the title, and Parker, he's only just entered the rankings. Maybe it's a timing thing. So if Whyte was correct, and the next guy is Dimitrenko, he's the next cab off the rank, you'd have to say that is a great fight for Kubrat Pulev. And especially because he's already beaten the guy before. So he would go in heavy favourite to beat him again. Then he would be coasting through to a title shot. So think about it like this for a second. If there's a strategy in play right now to get Whyte to walk away because, one, his promoter is not in control, Whyte may have to fight on foreign soil in front of a partisan crowd for short money with officials not to Matchroom's liking, then this Epic Sports bid, it could prove to be a masterstroke. It really puts the acid on Dillian Whyte, on Eddie Hearn, to sign or walk. What do you think he'll do? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.